have and to share with your students. I am Charlene Cooper, a curriculum development specialist for cyber.org, and I am joined here today by my phenomenal colleague, Willie Henderson, who heads up our HBCU feeder program. We are both really excited to host the discussion today on how students can make the leap from K-12 cyber education to the cyber workforce. And we are thrilled to have three leading cybersecurity professionals with us today who can offer tremendous insight to our discussion. So I am pleased to first introduce Nia Mack, ransomware risk advisor with American Family Insurance. Hi, Nia.
Hello.
And next, we welcome Josh Oglesby. Josh works in information security and cyber engineering at GDIT. Hi, Josh.
Hi, everyone.
And we're also excited to have an opportunity to talk with Rachel Berner, co-founder of Project Cyber and head of cloud security at Wells Fargo. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, everyone.
Willie, I know that we've both been looking forward to this webinar, so I'm going to turn it over to you now and we can get started.
Thank you so much, Charlene, and say good evening to everybody, good afternoon to everybody, and welcome to our three distinguished panelists today. We hope that we have a very fruitful discussion as we deal with this topic for this Cyber Month activity. And so without delay or holding anything back, we'll just get right started and jump right in. And our first panelist that we're going to hear from today is going to be Nia, Ms. Mack. How are you doing today, Nia?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Good, good, good. Nia, we had opportunity to have some as we set up this webinar, we had a chance for people to send in questions and things that they might want to be addressed. And so I just want to dive right into it and give you an opportunity to share a little bit of your expertise as your current position as a ransomware risk advisor. So Nia, the first question on docket is what is ransomware risk assessment?
So really, it's just analyzing risk. Whenever I think of risk, it's what's the worst thing that could happen. And so really just identifying what harmful or dangerous impacts could impact the company, as well as when it comes to ransomware. Ransomware is a leading threat right now, and it's really affecting many companies across the healthcare industry, as well as banking, as well as insurance. And so what I have to do is identify vulnerabilities in this, or help identify really risky vulnerabilities as it pertains to ransomware. So for example, ransomware, one of the most impactful ways that hackers get access to the system is through remote desktop, as well as through phishing. So really to analyze our defensive posture, and as well as one of the ways that you can recover the most successfully is by having a physical backup in another area, or another location, specifically if it's encrypted. So with that being said, we just want to make sure that we are positioning ourselves to defend in the best way against ransomware. But then, of course, because the cybersecurity field or industry environment rather is adapting and emerging every day, my job is to make sure that we are also including emerging risks as well, and emerging threats.
Okay, great. Well, obviously it seems that ransomware is going to kind of be at the heart of what a cybersecurity person is probably going to be seriously in tune with, especially in this day and age with the recent ransomware attacks, the Colonial Pipeline that we've all heard about and everything. So that being the case, Nia, what does one have to have a cybersecurity degree in order to work in cybersecurity?
Oh, that's a great question. So actually don't. So I have a master's degree and a bachelor's degree, both in cybersecurity. But that's just the path that I chose. Certifications are extremely beneficial to gaining success in cybersecurity, and really just wanting to learn, always have that continuous learning mindset, because experience is really valuable in the cybersecurity area. And certifications really account for experience, especially in the case where, you know, you're fresh out of college or fresh out of high school and you really don't have experience in the field itself. Certifications really provide you with the knowledge that you will need in order to succeed within that field. So with that being said, it's still looked for, like it's either or, right? To be completely honest, I really am not sure. Like, I'm still seeing a lot of like bachelor's degrees requirements, but that's also changing over time. And it's also about who you know. So if you network and you impress someone in the IT field or in the cybersecurity field, then you will definitely be able to make a way for yourself. And I did see the question about the certification. So the CISSP certification is the one that is like the best one that you could possibly get. But the thing with that is that you need about 5 years experience to be able to obtain that. So to start off, yes, CISSP. But to start off, I would also recommend the CompTIA ones. So Network Plus, A Plus, Network Plus, and Security Plus. Everyone of all ages can take that. And if there's anyone in college, like the earlier, the better with those. They're really, the A Plus is the starter one, then it's the Network Plus, and then it's the Security Plus.
All right. Nia, one quick before we go to the next question. I think in the chat room, they were wanting to know what was the acronym CISSP? What did that stand for?
Oh, I always get this confused.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
It's something along the lines of Computer Information Security, Information Systems Security Practitioner or something like that. There it is. I got it right. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you, Claire. And Nia, I don't know if you're looking through the camera and looking at my questions, but you are setting up everything so perfectly. You were talking a little bit about certifications and how important that is for students to have as they go out, because like you said, certifications really mean experience, especially for that person just coming out of college and whatnot. So taking from that, our next question is, what things did you do as a student to help put you in a position to land a job, like in terms of maybe putting together a portfolio that might obviously contain in it these things like certifications and whatnot?
Yes, absolutely. So yes, like you said, I put together a portfolio of my college work, of my projects. So for example, I think it was my junior year, we were taking a networking course as it pertains to hacking. And our professor actually had us pick a project where we had to hack something, and I actually had to create or set up different bots or zombies to hack a host. And so I actually put that in my resume as technical experience. And so while I didn't have, professional experience at the time, I was still able to document the work that I had done in cybersecurity, and really, draw eyes to the fact that while I didn't have professional experience, I still was doing things that are relevant in the industry.
Great, Nia. And look, I have one final question, and I like to kind of preface it with the fact that we know that one of the things that the cyber security industry is facing is we're trying to look at these workforce gaps, and in particularly, we're also looking at racial diversity and gender diversity within the cybersecurity workforce. So, with that being said, what do you think, or better yet, how do you think women can support women in cybersecurity?
Yeah, I think that's probably my favorite question that I've got today. What we can do, so there's this notion, and it's not just women, but it's definitely amongst us, that there's room for only a couple of us at the top. And especially as time goes, that is totally not the case. People like Rachel here have really taken me under their wing and just shown through their example that it is possible. So I say, one, lead by example, and two, always reach out to one another. So for example, if there's someone new on the team, even if they weren't a part of the team, if there was, especially like if she was fresh out of college, I do always make sure that I welcome her in, into the industry, and at least have a conversation with her and let her know that I support her. And then also just, being vulnerable to enough to share your story, because you never know who you're going to impact, and you never know who your story is going to speak to. And so when I first started, especially at Bank of America about 5 years ago, I thought I was a contractor, and, you can't even go to like events officially, but I snuck into a few as a contractor, but you're not supposed to until you're a full-time employee. But I really just used to wonder, like, how can I give back? I felt so blessed to be where I was at the time, and even more so now, of course, but knowing where I came from, there was just, I wish that there were, in my first job in Pennsylvania, there were actually women who, like, there were definitely no women of color, and there were no women of color in IT, and the one woman of color that like was even around me was very negative for no reason. I literally didn't even know her. So I didn't really realize how supportive women could be until I moved to Texas. But then, like, Rachel is all the way in California, and through our job, we were able to connect. And so, it's really just about, like, if there was something that you wish that you would have had, then try to give it to someone else. With that being said, they might not appreciate it because everyone is in different phases of life. But at the same time, like, just knowing that you did your best and that it's never too early to give back or to pass back a baton, that's something that really helped me. And it's really helped me propel in my career as well.
Thank you, Nia. I have to ask one just final closing question. You mentioned Rachel, obviously, as a woman who obviously was impactful in your life and in your professional life. Are there any other women that come to mind that just stand out as being those who motivated you to be where you are today?
Yes. So actually, the other co-founder of this, Regina Cadavid, I actually really admire her because, she is very accomplished at Bank of America, and she's really high up in the totem pole. And she's definitely been faced with some situations where, she was either challenged or something was said and it didn't come, it was rude, but it didn't, maybe, sometimes we say things and we don't mean for them to come out as bad. But Regina one thing that I think is her superpower is she's able to really stay so positive while still telling you really how it is. And being honest, which I think is so important about how we are as a, if we work in cybersecurity and work in a certain area, it's so important to be honest with where we're at, specifically with SLT or senior leadership, or even board members. Sometimes they lack the visibility because they don't actually work you know, in our seats. They're not in our seats. So sometimes their objectives don't always align with what we do. And so being able to really like communicate that effectively. And then on top of, you know, being a beast in that aspect, she is always willing to turn around and make sure that she helps out the next person. I've never met someone who's so busy, but will make time for people. You know, I was on her team, but now I'm not, and we're still in contact. And she actually offered to be my mentor, which like totally, I really appreciated. And so it's really just doing your best and doing what you see is best in your heart, and also standing up for people. You know, I remember one time we were in a call and I just spoke. I had someone ask for an idea and I just said my idea. And someone spoke up and they didn't mean to like kind of say, hey, why don't you say something else? Like, but that's what they said. And Regina spoke in and said something along the lines of, well, that was Nia's story. We just want to keep that intrinsic of her voice because we don't want to take away from any of those messages that are true to her. And so, you know, sometimes that is all we need to inspire or to really just get us to the next page and where we're in our lives. So yes, and I could mention, you know, many people that I've worked with. Bank of America is just, it's a great place that has such wonderful people. But even at American Family, I'm finding that there's wonderful people there. You know, it's all about being yourself. And, you know, even if other people, you know, worst case scenario aren't like that, then you still have to remain that way and remain true to yourself. So to me, that's what being a woman in technology is. It's really like half of it. I think it's about 50% like cybersecurity's actual work. It's more about giving back and looking out for others.
Well, Nia, thank you so much for answering those questions, and it's been great to hear from you. And so, not to keep you on the hot seat any longer, we're gonna spread the wealth here, and I'm gonna pass it over to my cohort, Charlene.
Thank you.
Thanks, Willie. Thanks, Nia. Yeah, I have some questions for Josh. And Josh, thank you so much for joining us today. You know, our hope is that our teachers will share this webinar with their students and that their students will be inspired to pursue a career in cybersecurity. And so we are really interested in hearing from you and about your journey into your career. And Josh is the Senior Manager of Cyber Engineering and Managed Security Tools at GDIT. And Josh, if you could just share with us first, what is cyber engineering?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, so essentially, cyber engineering is the processes where teams create, maintain, and operate a suite of tools or scripts or anything to help organizations remain secure. So all in all, essentially, whenever you see on TV and the shows, they like to really show like computer screens logs. So someone looking at logs on a computer screen, typically there's a back end to that, right? For that, all those systems to work, cyber engineering has to occur in the background. So that's essentially what cyber engineering is.
And how does that fit into what you do?
So essentially, my team over at GDIT, Managed Security Tools, we maintain those tools, right? So big vendors like Splunk, Tenable, Nessus, et cetera, we maintain those tools for our security operations analysts to use to help detect and monitor our networks as well as our customer networks. So that's essentially my role in the team. I help oversee that team.
Oh, wow. So what was your own path into cybersecurity like? How did you get started?
Yeah, it's a good question for sure. So for me, I've always know I've had an interest in cyber since a very young age, right? I'm still pretty young right now. But my journey started, I would say, in middle school. I was in a STEM program in in middle school, and we got really into robotics and learning things like HTML. I built a portfolio in middle school and started doing things like freelance web development and graphic design and things of that nature. I mean, I really been focused since a very young age, just having curiosity. Whenever I graduated high school, I had been freelancing for a while, and I knew that, hey, I want to do IT full time. So I decided to join the military because I wanted to get away from home. I was lucky enough to get an IT-based job. And that's when I learned like network administration, system administration, doing things from routers, switches, firewalls, et cetera. It was definitely a pretty good path. Up until 2017, I was active duty in the military, and then I transferred into a part-time position in the Air Force, focusing on cybersecurity and cloud. So that's pretty much where I am today. And I've been government contracting for the past four years now, full time, since leaving the Air Force in 2017.
Oh, wow, what a tremendous journey. I'm a former middle school teacher, so what you said really spoke to my heart because I really made it a goal of mine to try and create those opportunities for my students through robotics and STEM and cyber. And I'm wondering, as a former middle school teacher, what advice would you have for middle school teachers that are interested in trying to create opportunities? What are some things that you would recommend they could do for their students?
Yes, I mean, a lot of the students to be curious, right? I mean, things like robotics and learning things in the STEM field is just really big on curiosity. Since the field is so big, I'm pretty sure there's always going to be thousands of questions, right? So just try to be a resource to the students, allow the students to be curious.
That's great. Thank you. Um, what about a high schooler who is interested in cybersecurity? What advice would you have for them right now?
Oh, yes, most definitely. I mean, as Nia mentioned, right, taking or trying to build a portfolio of things that you've done or have interest in doing, gaining certifications. Certifications for me have been really big, right, to help me progress in my career over time. I've progressed pretty fast since leaving the military, and I definitely think that certifications and leveraging experience, whether it's formal or informal, can definitely be a huge resume boost to help you gain that first entry-level job.
Yeah, and you mentioned building a portfolio. Nia mentioned that as well. Could you share with us what your portfolio may have looked like or things you may have added to that?
Almost definitely. So for me back then, it was just some of the things that I was building out in like the web development aspect. But now in the field of cybersecurity, you can build like your own like GitHub repo with scripts and tools that you've created to help secure things, whether it be just performing like basic network scans using free open source tools like Nmap or things of that nature, learning Python, things like that could definitely help show interest in the ability to learn or initiatives in the field.
Thank you, Josh. And before we move on to ask Rachel some questions, are there any questions that we have right now in the chat?
I think we've kind of, we have one just popped up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just a comment.
Tammy says that she's so impressed at what you do daily. That is extremely impressive.
Yes.
I wasn't entirely familiar with what cyber engineering was, so I'm fascinated with that now. And we do have a question here from Charisma. How did you find out about freelance work in middle school?
Just being curious, right? And me being a 10, 11-year-old kid on the internet, just performing daily searches on Google on how to make money. I'm like, hey, how can I make money online? And then next thing I know, I found out about certain websites like Upwork or freelancer.com where you can perform certain things for potential customers, and they pay you to do small jobs for them. So that's essentially how I found out about it.
Yes. Now, Josh's biggest advice is be curious. I love that also.
Most definitely. It's definitely important to be curious. I have this sign on my wall back there that says, outwork everyone, right? I just definitely like to work hard, be curious, and that just, it'll help you go far.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Josh. Willie, I'm going to turn it back to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Josh. That was truly inspiring and great words for our listeners, and great advice as well. And like Charlene said, I wasn't really familiar with what exactly cyber engineering was, but just to listen to your path and your journey. And I think it's just really important to know, and the fact that you pointed out that this started it for you at such a long age, and it was really just your passion and your just drive and wanting to just to make that dream a reality. And so I'm sure you have a lot of people that are very, very proud of you, and I know you should be commended on all of those things, and wish you continued success. Our final panelist is Rachel Berner. Ms. Berner is the co-founder of a project entitled Project Cyber, and she is the cloud security leader at Wells Fargo. She has 20 plus years experience in her career in technology, and she is actually an international economics major. And so I know whenever I talk about the cloud around my dad, he kind of, as an older gentleman, he's like, "What is the cloud?" I know people have this, they have this vision of something hovering above our heads and whatnot. So Rachel, maybe you can help us out with your expertise in saying that, what is cybersecurity and how is cloud security related to cybersecurity?
Yeah, happy to, and happy to be here. Definitely alongside Nia and Josh. I'm so excited to be here. So what is cybersecurity? Just very, very simply put, because there are a lot of very technical definitions you can find on the internet. But cybersecurity is the practice of protecting computers, networks, and information from unauthorized access or modification or use. And in the field, roles like what Joshua does with cyber engineering and what Nia does from a ransomware risk perspective are a couple of examples of how we go about protecting our computers, networks, and information. Cloud, also very simply, is the delivery of computing services over the internet. And when we say computing services, we're talking about all sorts of things, whether it's instantiating a server or you need storage, let's say for your photos or files, database or analytic tools, other software applications, but it's that delivery of computing services over the internet. So cloud security is about applying cybersecurity practices to protect your computing resources or information on cloud computing platforms.
Oh, okay, well, great. Hey, thank you so much. So we know that cloud, I like that cloud, the delivery of computer services over the internet. I have to remember next time my dad asks me, I can give him that one. That seems, I think he can handle that definition. All right, so thanks a lot, Rachel. But Rachel, as you spoke on that, what type of advice then, this kind of plays on the conversations that were earlier brought up with Nia and Josh, talking about the certifications and the things that kind of put in your portfolio to make you a better candidate for employment and whatnot. So in that same area, people also are familiar, or they talk about internships. And so the question is, what type of advice to students or do you give to students when it comes to internships and actual network building?
Yeah, I mean, internships and really any job, right? Part-time, full-time, paid, unpaid, are all great opportunities to build skills and to build your network. So when I look at my career, I unlike Nia, was not a cybersecurity major, or even, I didn't, or even computer science, right? So I was an international economics major. I minored in classics, right? So the thought of going into technology was really pretty far from my mind as I was preparing to graduate college and go into my career. But a lot of my opportunities that kind of got me to where I, got my start in technology came from skills that I built, performance I was able to demonstrate, and a network, the people in my network that I built from internships and my part-time jobs during college. So for example, when I was in college, again, I was an economics major. I was working at the Career Center at UCLA where I went. I would not have gotten my first technology role had it not been for specific people I met and built relationships with in that job. And here I am 20 years later. Now, all in all, you never know where an opportunity will come from. So I think just whatever you're doing, whether you're volunteering somewhere, you're interning, it's your college job, whatever it might be, I think just always remembering to treat everyone around you with respect and always present your best self, because again, you never know where the opportunity will come from. And oftentimes it comes from where you don't expect it.
Hey, Rachel, I want to throw in one because you talked about the internship and those skills. Can you maybe speak a little bit about, we often, in this day and age with students being so technology driven and we live in a day and age of instant gratification and, we press a button and we get an answer. And we text and we shorthand things. Well, a lot of times for many of the youth, as an educator myself, I found that kind of took away the personalness of it all. It really took away children or students' ability to be effective communicators and things of that nature. So maybe can you talk a little bit about, soft skills and those things that come about maybe in that internship that they can help to grow and to become better at?
Absolutely. And, when I talk about skill building from your internships, it really isn't just about the technical experience or technical skills. Because as you start your career, you're going to realize very quickly that you won't work in isolation. You will be working with team members. You'll be working, in a potentially, kind of in a management chain of individuals. You might be managing people, but all in all, just kind of being able to know how to, work with others, negotiate with others, prioritize your work. In some cases, when I look to my job in high school in a bookstore and some of the important skills just around, how to engage customers, and in your professional career, it might be clients, right? And teamwork, knowing how to research. These are all things that are, not really just about building those technical building blocks, but really understanding how to work in a professional environment. And there is no experience that you'll have where you won't be picking up on those skills.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Rachel. And Rachel, look, I know this next question is going to fall very, very near and dear to your heart. To let our participants in this webinar know, Rachel is the proud co-founder of Project Cyber. We know that women represent the largest single economic force in the world, and that women only make up about 11% of the cybersecurity workforce. And this rate has kind of remained that way probably over the last 4 to 5 years. And we know that because of that and from that statistic in and of itself, I know that Project Cyber has aimed to address that. And so do you have any suggestions then on how we can get girls and other marginalized students, as you try to do in your Project Cyber, to be interested in the cybersecurity career?
Absolutely. And this is very, very near and dear to my heart, for sure. And, through Project Cyber, we have the mission to empower girls to succeed in cybersecurity. And the good news is that 11% is and has increased, but it hasn't increased enough, right? We certainly need better representation of female and diverse talent in cybersecurity. Through Project Cyber, we do it by connecting with girls across the country, and actually in some cases even outside of the United States, to teach cybersecurity concepts through fun, interactive exercises. But what I think more broadly, and thinking about how to get girls and marginalized students, interested, I think the first step is really just giving students exposure to the field. So, most students, if not all, are digitally connected, right? They know and have a general understanding of internet safety for the most part, but is the thought of considering a career in cybersecurity in their minds? Maybe not. So I think that's a good seed to plant, right? In terms of giving students awareness of the very diverse career paths. I mean, if you look at Nia, Joshua, and I, we have very different roles in a cybersecurity program. So I think just giving students awareness of the diverse career paths. Some of them may be technical, and some of those career paths are not technical. I think planting those seeds, raising that awareness is first. I think another kind of really key and interesting point is just having students understand that a career in cybersecurity can really provide a lucrative and high demand career path. Cybersecurity has negative employment around the world. I think there's a shortage of 3.5 cybersecurity jobs around the world, so the demand is high. And the average starting salary for entry-level cybersecurity positions can be up to the $80,000 and $90,000 range. So when you think about students, particularly coming from marginalized communities, imagine the impact that can have on an individual or family. I mean, again, the career paths are very diverse, and you can come from different backgrounds into a career in cybersecurity, and having that awareness is important. And I think the other, kind of last piece is, what we do in cybersecurity really protects the livelihood of individuals and communities. So there's a real social impact to what we do. And we know that connects particularly to female students, right? We're not out there to make as much money as we can. We really are protecting people and their assets and their livelihoods. And so I think that's really a cool concept for people to understand, for students to understand, and that may also motivate them to join us in the cybersecurity field.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for that. Really appreciate that. And I think now that we've had a chance to listen to all of our three esteemed panelists, we have some questions that have been dropped in the chat box that we want to have you all possibly address, and whoever decides they wants to go first, it doesn't matter. Charlene, I'll read that first question now. One of our listeners is asking, what is one of the biggest myths about working in the cyber field? Anybody?
I can chime in, kind of echoing a little bit about what I was saying. I think, one of the myths is we're a bunch of people wearing black hoodies in like a dark room somewhere, right? I mean, not just the hackers, but the cybersecurity professionals as well. And you see some of the representation in media that kind of represent cybersecurity people in that way. And I do think that is a myth. Certainly just from the panelists here, we see how diverse the workforce, the cybersecurity workforce can be. As I mentioned, there are a lot of different career paths, technical, non-technical, that you can pursue in cybersecurity. So I think kind of this notion that you need to be kind of a deep technical, type is one thing I want to make sure people understand, that there are a lot of entry points and pathways in cybersecurity.
Okay.
And I know one of the myths that was kind of debunked for me today, just in this conversation, is a lot of times students will picture cybersecurity professionals as just kind of working alone on a computer. And all three of you do have very different roles, but I kept hearing that common element of teamwork and being able to work together on a team, and how important that is. Another question we
Absolutely.
have is what is one of the most fun or satisfying things about working in the cybersecurity field?
I can take that one. I think one of the most satisfying parts about working in the cybersecurity field is that you get to impact so many more people than you think. So to Rachel's point, your work is not only securing your company, right? But I work for an insurance company. Rachel works for a bank. Josh, I forget what area you work in, but I know, like, without your work, you can't serve your job. Your company can't service the customers. So without Rachel's work, there's really it would be really hard to do banking with Wells Fargo. Without my work, we could go down to ransomware and no one would know why or how to defend. Um, and without, I think I got Josh's, without his work, they could also become a victim of cybersecurity or of a threat or an attack and not be able to service their customers as well. And then also from just my perspective, I never thought that I would be able to impact so many young people through what I do. I'm pretty young as well, even though I have about 10 years experience under my belt right now. But I didn't think that I had a voice until I realized that I wish that there was someone that was younger that was able to speak to me about their experience. And so I kind of became that person. And like, you really don't know who you can impact. I've had all kinds of people come up to me, men, women, girls, guys, people that I never thought that I could reach. So, and even like through the virtual, I've talked to people. I had a mentee that was in Massachusetts outside of Boston. I've never been there before. So, it's just really cool to see, and then I'm a woman and I'm minority. And so people, are really amazed by that. Sometimes I look at my own life and I didn't, I'm blessed in a lot of ways. But there's some people that thought that they couldn't do it or that they can't make their goals. And so, when someone like me, and of course I've seen people like Rachel and Regina, who's not on the call, and many, many others from Bank of America and other places, really just showing me that it's possible. So, I just figured I would join that.
Great. Well, look, we got one more question, and ladies, we're not going to let Josh get off the hook here. So I'll ask it to him. Josh, what was there anything that once you got into your career in cybersecurity, was there anything that just totally caught you off guard, that was like surprising or was unexpected?
I would say so, yes, most definitely, right? Just like everyone has mentioned, whenever you see something happening on TV in regards to the realm of cyber, you see folks in hoodies in a dark room just doing things by themselves, right? And not necessarily have that teamwork aspect. But I can say that honestly, in the 10, 11 years that I've been in IT and cyber, that only happens in rare situations, right? And it's definitely not the norm, right? And I've only been in that situation if I've been called in or have to fix something after hours, right? But typically, that's definitely a myth for sure about being like a lone wolf in cyber. It's definitely about teamwork to help an organization perform its mission properly.
All right. Well, I think we have one wrap-up question. You want to take that one, Charlene?
Sure. So we're going to end with this question here, and we'd like for each of you to give us your thoughts on it. And the question is, how can students get excited and started with cybersecurity, in your opinion? And we'll start with Rachel.
Oh, Yeah, I mean, I think find opportunities to learn, you know, whether it's through programming like we offer through Project Cyber, or, you know, other opportunities that are out there. I think find ways to just, you know, connect with other people, other students who are also interested, learn concepts, and kind of see where, you know, where your interests may lie. Again, it may be very technical, you know, maybe you want to solve, you know, cryptographic problems, like, you know, or maybe you like kind of more the analysis type. You want to look through those logs and find the anomalies, or maybe you want to help teach people about cybersecurity. And that's really important, right? Everyone has a responsibility when it comes to, you know, cybersecurity for themselves and for others. Maybe you want to teach. And so I think finding that angle and exploring while you're young, exploring through different jobs, through volunteers, through projects, and just kind of see what, you know, what strikes your fancy, I think would be great. So I would say while you're young, explore, try things out, and make your way in.
Thank you, Rachel. And Nia, how do you think students can get excited and started with cybersecurity?
So I have to piggyback off of Rachel's, because learning and exploring is really, really critical. And actually off of what Josh said as well, like to be curious, like it's really crucial. My word of advice for this would be to, especially like for middle school and high school students, don't look at something and say, no, I'm not gonna like that, and don't try it first. There is so many things that I've tried that I was like, oh, this isn't that bad, you know, and it really projected me and my knowledge of cyber. And even if I didn't stay with it, it still helped me. For example, when I was in college, I took a C# class, most boring class ever. It's a programming languages for folks who don't know that. And I assumed from that point on, like, listen, I'm not a coder. I'm not ever going to do this in my career. That's not happening. Well, I actually got a role where it was a little slow for me. It was just not as much going on, and I really wasn't challenged. So I was literally looking for work so that I could, you know, make sure that I was on the right page, make sure that I was, you know, progressing my career and so forth. Well, the opportunity that fell in my lap is to teach a Python class, an entry-level Python class. I was scared because I'm like, what in the world? I am not a coder. This is another language I have to learn. But something that I learned is, one, Python isn't that hard to learn. It's really like there's a lot of things that are built in. And so I still think I'm a non-programmer. But what was critical for me was to understand how code works. And because this is the thing, so many cyber vulnerabilities or IT vulnerabilities come from code that is built from vulnerabilities that are coded into products and software. And so if you if you know how it's supposed to be written securely, or if you know what to look for that are that makes things insecure, such as backdoors, that's like one of the most common programmer vulnerabilities that are implanted there. If you can look for those things, then you can easily identify vulnerabilities. You can easily defend and beef up your defensive posture. And also, like, you know, I'm in risk management, but I understand the risks of, you know, producing insecure code. And that's, you know, I understand the risks. And that's something that, you know, I was surprised, at least it's not really that common to build security in from the jump. And so it's really something that us as innovative, emerging, I think innovative is the best word right now because I can't think of anything else, but just to make sure that you're proactively staying ahead, you know, that's something that I definitely recommend. So with that, I think I'll pass it to Josh.
Thank you, Nia. And same question, Josh. How can students get excited and started with cybersecurity?
You're muted.
Most definitely, just like we talked about earlier, like the certification aspect for me is definitely exciting, right? Let's say you start off with the basic A+ and Net+ and Security+. You get a bolt of energy, excitement whenever you pass those exams, right? And then you say, oh yeah, I can do this cyber or IT thing. So I definitely think that not being afraid to take the jump that can definitely be really exciting. It can be scary at first, but once you get over the jump, it can definitely be more exciting. So I think that's definitely my advice.
Such great advice. Thank you.
All right. Well, it's amazing that this hour has flown by, and what I would like to say is that on behalf of cyber.org, I'd like to first thank our outstanding panelists of cybersecurity professionals who have truly given us a treat today. We want to thank them all, for each and every one of you, for sharing your experiences and your insight and your passion about your various careers in the field of cybersecurity. And I just want you to know that for myself, I know, and for the others, that it was truly inspirational. And we definitely were given some great information so that the teachers who are on and the students possibly can take back to their classrooms and into their lives and put into practice in hopes of continuing to attract students into this field of cybersecurity. I'd also like to thank each and every person who joined us for our discussion today, and to give a special shout out to those persons who dropped in some of those amazing questions in the chat box for our panelists. So that was a really great job. Your participation truly made this webinar a success, and we hope to have you return as a guest in future cyber.org presentations and webinars. This recording, as Charlene said, will be made available through cyber.org very soon. So feel free to share this with your students and with other cybersecurity advocates. So please be sure to join us for our next webinar series, Making the Leap from K-12 to Cybersecurity Careers. And that's going to be set for Thursday, November the 18th. So again, on behalf of Rachel, Josh, and Nia, and on my co-moderator, Ms. Charlene Cooper, we'd like to thank you all for your attendance and your participation. And as I always end, create a great day. Thank you.